Yes, restart. Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome to our final video on reading Machiavelli's Prince. This is the thoughts and reflections. This is not going to be a long video because we ended up the thing. This is the last video. This is the 1st of August. That should be, on that sense. And I have a video to do because I'm going to be releasing next from this point on videos about the course I had, and I'm just doing that for the month of August, the rest of August. And I'm going to be kind of taking a break and rethinking about what to do for the September issue about what the videos. But we need to wrap up Machiavelli, and we did it last video. We finished chapter 26. The Thrust of the Prince, again, is a very interesting book because The Prince is that book that is so brief and it's so classic, it's so iconic. Everyone reads it, everyone knows about it. But at the same time, and everyone perceives it as this, like we said, this kind of, in the genre of the, advice to princes books, starting with, Xenophon's Arpadeia and Cicero's Diophaces, as, this education of a prince, this idea of advice to princes, this tradition in that sense. That this is that classic in that tradition, and Machiavelli's kind of reframing it and reshaping it and giving the modern book. This book is is also said to be the break between, let's say, the older classical tradition, which emphasizes virtue and nobility, to a kind of realism, a cynicism and realism. The Prince is often said to be kind of a book that deals with kind of like how to be a ruthless bastard. Well, the problem with that, all these are just, yes, it's Machiavelli's intentionally looking at a genre that others, but at the same time, he's trying to break the genre, right? He's trying to alter it. He's trying to invent new modes and new orders, and therefore the Prince is doing a lot of new things. And that the Prince also tries to adopt new conceptions, of his conceptions of the new modes and orders necessary for this. But the problem with the Prince is often read as kind of the book for princes, where it's not. Yes, it's trying to, its audience is people who are like princes and have little time. But his teaching is generally about the nature of politics and the things that need to be done to be successful in political politics, and to understand the institutions of politics. The institution that he wants to talk about and he's innovating on is the move away, the Stato, the state. This is his new, his language, and he's offering a new language to understand, to frame and reshape political life, political experience, political understanding of the political in this sense. And thus, this is the innovative, radical thing that Machiavelli is engaged in. Now, we can say, listen, in one sense he looks radical, but he's not. If we compare him to Hobbes, in other words, he's closer to the Aristotelian world of the Aristotelian political system than Hobbes would be. Hobbes is, we can argue that someone like Thomas Hobbes will be the real radical break. But even Hobbes's framework rests on Machiavelli. So therefore, we look at Leviathan, but also Hobbes's earlier work, De Cive, which is really kind of an echo to, an homage to the Prince in that sense. Even though Hobbes in his Leviathan totally abandons the Aristotelian framework, that Machiavelli somewhat still retains. So at one level we see there's an innovation in the Prince, a break, but at the same time a relative, willing to accept and not go too far from the classical understandings of Aristotle regarding things like stasis, things like conflict, things like heart, what works. I mean, if you look at what Aristotle and Machiavelli says about things like how to maintain order, how to how to what are the forces that drive conflict and drive things like civil wars and civil strife and the downfall of political orders. Aristotle, you pay attention to Aristotle's book 5, it reads very, sounds like Machiavelli, and that's always the problem in this sense. Particularly when his advice on and you're looking at particularly his Aristotle's Politics book 5, particularly chapters 10 and 11, it is almost, you can say, where's Machiavelli, right? We can hear Machiavelli or Machiavellian themes and Machiavellian style, not style necessary, but the themes and issues and questions are kind of addressed. So there's this overlap. The difference is tone. The Prince, and again, this is the problem. The Prince has said, as he says in the Episcopal Dedicatory, this is his complete understanding of politics. This is, in other words, this is everything he knows, both from his experience, his experience as a political actor, and his long reading in things ancient. Okay, so therefore, this is, this. In fact, this is the problem with the Prince. People say, well, the Prince is about monarchical or autocratic rule, and the discourses are a Republican book. No, the difference in in other words, in both these books, the Prince and the Discourse, Machiavelli explicitly says, but in the Episcopal Dedicatory, that in this work this work here contains everything he knows. So the question is, why does he need to have the Prince and the Discourses? Well, it's the audiences. The audiences are different. The audience of the Prince is dedicated to a prince, someone who is busy, who doesn't have time, doesn't have leisure to reflect and discourse on these things. Whereas the Discourses are dedicated to a bunch of young men who have time, who have leisure, who are engaged in leisure in that sense, and therefore he can go there. In other words, the leisure grants them further excursions and allows Machiavelli to expand on things and go further than would be possible with dealing with a person who has a busy practical leader who's engaged in political rule. So therefore, the audience of the Prince is understood to a person who is kind of, again, therefore this is why the Prince is the classic in a sense. And even though the Discourses are a fantastic book to read, and people do read them, and I think people should read them, and that's understandable. But there's no real lesson, there's no different teaching in it in this sense. And thus the Prince offers us a insight into thinking about what the lessons that Machiavelli has to teach us, both how to, teach us about political rule, the nature of politics, but also how a political ruler thinks. And thus, this is why The Prince is that wonderful book in that sense. It is compact. It is there, but it offers us at the same time it offers us a venue into a very large universe, and that is what I hope that our overview, our discussion of reading through The Prince has shown in this sense, has brought forth, has revealed. Now, another thing about one of the things I have to shape, that my account of this has been shaped by my teachers. I know Harvey Mansfield. I know, but never studied with. But I know through him personally, my interactions with him over time, both at events and also at through conversations, both in person and also electronic, by letters, correspondence, and emails. But the primary teacher would be someone like of course, Roger Masters. I knew well. In Masters' book on Machiavelli's Origins of Science and the role of this, both in his Loyola lectures published by I think Loyola, the book, Notre Dame published a notebook on his science book, his Machiavelli and Leonardo, and then also his book, the more popular version of that, Fortune is a River, right? So I had a first-hand experience of this, and I also had, but my primary teacher was Leo Paul de Alvarez, and de Alvarez we used de Alvarez's translation. Yes, there's different newer translations that would be better, and yes, people would say, why don't you use the Mansfield translation? I think the problem with Mansfield translation is good, it's smoother, it's righter. De Alvarez I like it because it forces you to read it slowly, and it's a little bit more literal in that sense. But there is a new, better literal translation out there published. I don't know where it is. It's one of those university presses. I know the name. And unlike the de Alvarez edition, it also has additional snippets from other writers at the end of it to kind of highlight it. They're kind of like in the what is it? Norton Classics used to do with that, but it's not Norton. I think it's not even. I forget the publisher, and I'm blanking on the name. He was a former student of Paul Ray, who then went to become a Renaissance scholar, Italian scholar. Paul always recommends this new translation, saying and the translation does address de Alvarez's little bit. It responds to Eric de Alvarez to some degree, to a good degree, I think, and does point out corrections and disagreements with de Alvarez's choices. So part of me should say maybe I should use it, right? But de Alvarez was always interesting to de Alvarez translation and his little commentary. His book about the Prince, which is the Machiavelli Enterprise, published in 1999 by Northern Illinois University Press, offers us a good mechanism to understand this. And de Alvarez argues the Prince has to be understood by its divisions and its logic and its structure. And he divides it, takes the text and says there's a frame. The frame is the epistle dedicatory, and what? Chapter 26, the exhortation. As we discussed in the previous video on chapter 26, we talked about how 25 flows into 26, the radically different character of the style of chapter 26 of the Prince. That therefore its style is completely out, in a different tone, different form. It's style, how the tone of it, the style of it is completely different, and it has an exhortational aspect that differs from in a dramatic way the kind of approach of examining and questioning and testing that the main Prince, the body of the text of the Prince, does, the other chapters. So we have the frame, we have the epistle dedicatory, which dedicates the work, and the exhortation. And in this we have three parts. The original Prince, the Prince that we called Die Principatus, which deals with the 11 chapters of, he sketches out he basically delivers what he promises in chapter 1 to some degree with deviation. A small chapter 1 sketches out what he's going to do, and this is the Die Principatum, maybe the first draft in that sense. Then, so therefore, chapters 1 through 11 gives us the kind of thing on princes, on principalities, right? On principalities. And therefore focuses on the different variations of principalities. And chapters now divided into three other parts. The next part, 12, 13, and 14, the three chapters which deals with arms. The arms and the man, right? The question of arms. The question of arms. And as Alvarez says, this is the thing that goes, the question of arms and the man. then this then leads us to the next chapter. And this is 15 through 19. The 5 chapters, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. These 5 chapters. And these are the questions of the qualities of the prince, the questions of virtues, the virtues and vices, the questions of character, the question of the qualities, and which qualities are beneficial and which qualities are harmful, which qualities are necessary, which qualities are not necessary. In other words, he gives us the example of the question of qualities. So if chapters 1 through 11 gives us the principalities, the varieties of princely rule, and 12, 13 to 14 gives us the question of arms, the tools. The next thing is the characters, the qualities of the prince, right? And last, a section which deals with basically from 16 to, this one I get right, 20 to 25, right? From 20 to 25, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6 chapters. We get, so 11, 3, 5, 6. The fourth section, the fourth kind of division, deals with the question of prudence, the judgment of the prince. The question of the judgment or prudence of the prince. And in these chapters, these 6 chapters, Machiavelli constantly engages in a kind of examination of the question of prudence of the ruler and the reader's prudence as well. And the reader's judgment in understanding what has been said. And in other words, because what is so shocking about here is in these chapters, there on various occasions, Machiavelli will exhort you to do something which he is earlier, and even in the chapter, even in the various chapter or sections of the chapter, or elsewhere in the Prince, he has argued against or warned about or told you not that this is not well thought of. And then he exhorts you to do things. Now, sometimes he'll exhort you to do things that are right, but then he'll exhort you to do things in his own name that he knows, that he's explained earlier, that is not wise, not good. So the question then is, why does he lie to you? This is the classic argument. If he's lying to you, then you can't. No, that can't be the case. In other words, why does he do this? And the argument is, that I'm going to make here, is that this is done because he's trying to teach and see. This is the testing you whether you really understand the material. Are you a worthy subject? Because if you cannot judge this, you cannot judge when he's lying, when he's that he's just giving you bad advice. It's because you have not learned the lessons that he's given here. And that if you do this, if you just listen to him, just take his advice simply, you will end up failing, a misunderstanding. In fact, even some of the true things he tells you are very conditionally true, not simply true. And then, even though sometimes he will give a general rule, he then will qualify it. Sometimes he can't qualify it. Sometimes he says you can't give a general rule, then he then does, right? All of this is constantly Machiavelli's playing with the reader, and that is something that you, as a reader, must pay attention to in that sense, and engage with and fundamentally understand. So, this leads us to our reflection on the Prince. Why is the Prince so it is such an important book. It is a book about learning how to think, learning how to judge, learning how to read. First of all, learning how to read carefully, learning how to not only read what is there, but what is not there. This is something that Machiavelli is saying. That, in other words, but wait a minute. I'm not a prince. I'm not a ruler. I have more time. Why don't I, therefore, maybe we shouldn't be reading the prince. Maybe we should read the discourses. No, here's about why the prince is important and why the prince differs from discourses in a sense, as a tool for thinking. Because he's forcing you to think. He does things in the prince that he will not do in the discourses. I think there is a more playfulness and a willingness to force the reader, and this intimacy. There's an intimacy in the prince. We talked about this as the use of the you, the second person plural. The first person, you, right? The formal you versus the informal you. How he speaks to the prince as both in a sense that formally and the formal tone, but then at times he'll switch to the informal tone. Now in drama, in Italian drama, not Italian drama, yeah, but Italian and French drama, when that is done, remember you have to understand Machiavelli is also a dramatist. His plays, the Clizia and the Mandragora, or Balfour Gets a Wife, which is a famous sketch, but not really a play. But the devil gets Balfour, the devil gets a wife, right? Machiavelli is a playwright. Machiavelli is one of the fathers of Italian literature in that sense, drama in that sense, and therefore, the Clizia and the Mandragora are still kind of classics in Italian drama. And if studied French drama, you're doing the same thing. That there was ways that they wouldn't show you a seduction, but there was a seduction. How did you know there was a seduction? Was because when they used the second person singular case to someone, it went from the formal to the informal. When they started talking to each other informally, that indicated they were intimate with each other, and therefore something happened. Well, Machiavelli knows this convention in drama that was in French literature and in Italian literature, because of the nature of these Latin-based languages, or vulgarized Latin. Okay, they have similar behavior in that sense. And what's true, but therefore Machiavelli's this seduction is something that he's doing. He's wooing you. He's wooing you and seeing if by wooing you are you able to keep are you still the reader able to keep your judgment, keep your discernment, or are you easily wooed, and will you simply just succumb to the seduction? Okay, that is the other problem. In other words, this is why you have to be careful with Machiavelli, in the Prince particularly, because there is this seductive aspect towards it. It will, and therefore requires care and attention. I had a colleague, an older colleague, who used to complain when I taught this, you're teaching Machiavellianism, because he was a very anti-Machiavellian character, the professor was at the school. When I taught critical thinking, I said, yes, you teach Plato's Apology or something like that, to kind of get the famous Socratic dialogue, to get the Socratic approach. But then you bring in something like Prince. Why? Because the Prince is a very good book teaching people how to think. And also, it also deals with the emotion in ways that in seduction, how to discern what is real and what's not real, what is being done to influence you through seduction rather than pure argument. So the Prince is a very what the Prince thus offers as someone who's studying these things and wishing to learn. This is a good thing. Now, people say, why are you doing this video at the end? Maybe you should have had this video at the beginning. Well, that's true. Maybe I should have. I had an introduction video for this series, and I talked about some of these themes and issues. But I thought I'd be wrapping up this on this category. I'm stuck with my interface. They changed it. This is why I hate technology changing, because I was going to have the prints on the background and try to do this, but I couldn't manipulate things because they altered it, and the interface is not working as smoothly as it used to. So I'm having a month to learn on how to fix this. Well, that's it. I think that is the good thing where we end up. I bitch about the skinastity, whatever the hell you screen catastrophe, catastrophe. And this is why the video, you're only having seeing me, and not having an image of the prints. You're not having the prints or my battered copy of the prints out there, there as kind of a prop. Well, that's it. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or even suggestions, please put them below. I know people who are saying, why don't you go do the Iliad or the Odyssey? And, as I talk to people about that, the problem with doing the Iliad and Odyssey is that on the videos, it is be too long. Doing each book, book by book by book, would be hours of this. And it's kind of like what it is, okay? Another thing you can do is, if you like the videos, like it, please like the video. Go watch the series. You can go compare the two versions of the prints that we've done. The one from 2 or 3 years ago when we first started doing videos because at COVID. Or then you can go check this series, the new series of the prints. Or you can go check out the other items that we did here. The Locke's second treatise on Aristotle's politics. We did the ethics recently. Just finished the ethics just prior to doing the new prints. We did Thucydides, Peloponnesian War. Again, that was a very odd, difficult thing to do. Because of that, we did Montesquieu's Spirit of the Laws. So we Rousseau's Social Contract. We did at least several things on Carl Schmitt. We did, so we've covered a lot of books here out there. So please go check out the previous videos and check out those out if you've not checked it out. I think they're very good in that sense. Another thing you can do is we do our Friday live streams as per normal, where I just go blab on about things, whatever topic or issue that people want me to talk about. Well, that's it. So please put your comments, questions, and things there. I see my wife popped her head in here, please put them there. Like the video, like it, share it far and wide. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe. We're getting near the magic number, 500, so we'll hopefully get some people like this. Liking it, sharing it, commenting, all these things are mechanisms to improve the algorithm for YouTube. Another thing to do, if you didn't like it, you can always thumbs down it, but say why in the comments so people can learn from this. You can follow me on social media. The links are below, or the URLs are below. Or to know more about me as an academic and a researcher and check out my scholarship and things like that, you can check out my academic social media links below the social media links. If you want to help contribute to what I do in that sense, you can do the links to Subscribestar and Patreon in that sense. Or another way you can assist in this projects, you can buy one of my books that are listed below. The currently available books, 3 books currently available, and you can order them through your local bookstore if you want, or through a online distributor like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Libris, or to the publishers, directly to the publishers themselves. Well, that's it, and we're done with the prints. Well, thank you very much for being here with us, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Have a good day.